Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Tintu, and today we're diving into a story that's about much more than a career milestone. It's about identity, resilience, and using our own journey to lift others. My guest here today is Salimatou, founder of Gifted, a project that's rethinking how we connect education with who we really are. She's worked with the United Nations, and recently she added author to a list of titles with her debut novel, Short, Wounds to Warriors. Salimatu, I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you very much, Stan, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Let's start simple. When you look back at your childhood, growing up surrounded by different languages and cultures, how do you think that shaped the way you see the world today?
So, yeah, I was lucky to grow up with three languages, I would say, two at home and then one in the summer that was English. So, I grew up in between French, English, and also African language, Fulani. The fact of growing up with those languages, I think that shaped the way I think in the sense that I understood very early on that culture is not about only your past. It's also about how you experiment language, how you experiment ambitions, how you understand stories, how you relate to others. It shaped the way I now work with gifted because it's very important for me to understand multiple perspectives, diversity of views, diversity of language, understand each other's story, and also, of course, deliver gifted in the three languages that I speak today. It also defines my relationship to leadership, I would say, because there is an element of diversity, equity, and inclusion in growing up with multiple language that becomes part of my identity and DNA. And it's very important for me in all the work that I do to incorporate that element of seeking other views, seeking to understand and to connect with other cultures. So
Yeah.
that's probably how it shaped me.
Wow, wonderful. You know what I find beautiful? The way the books and education kept showing up in your story. It's almost like steady companions guiding you along the way. So, from your point of view, how do these early influences, the books, the learning, that still shape the work you do today?
Thank you for saying that. It's true that I grew up also at same. It goes back to my childhood, the way my parents raised me. I think that books helped me in that case understand words. And today I'm a very visual learner, and I think that's also a direct consequence of growing up so immersed in stories, in other characters' lives, in fictional worlds. And so in Gifted, for example, you will find that visual aspect is very important. In the book that you mentioned, also my book, Short Wounds to Warrior, you'll find many references to imagery, to visual words. And the way I think of the clients that I serve as well, it's almost a relationship with their whole life story, right? So it's not who they are and their difficulty in the moment that we're speaking, it's their entire life arc. And that's also pretty much inspired by the way I had that relationship with books early on.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your early influences. And I think that also shaped the way that you founded Gifted, right? So let's now talk about Gifted. Even the name feels very intentional, like a statement, I would say. But I know it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It came from your personal place. How did
Yeah.
the idea for Gifted first come about? Can you please share more with our readers here?
Sure, and thank you for mentioning the name. Indeed, gifted has a lot of meaning, especially for me. It comes from the idea that our wounds, which is also the word that I use in the book, our wounds actually are the gateways to our deepest gifts, and so that's why the name Gifted for the company and for the work that we do. Gifted was born initially in 2013. And that was at an event. I was part of an organization with other student leaders, and we were working on leadership, how to impact communities and our own environments. And that day, we were asked to make a statement and a commitment to what do we want to create for ourselves and the community. And that day, I had the vision of creating a school initially that would teach young people to become leader of their communities by using what they have inside. That was the one moment, but I think if I'm really um, fully honest also with myself, I think that the Gifted project came from my own story of my own hardships, and also as mentioned in the article with sickle cell disease. It came from a lot of years of volunteering and the conversations that I had with people from marginalized communities, children, women, men. And I understood in those conversations and in those coaching sequences that we had that more than our hardships, what shape us is the stories that we tell ourselves and the world about our hardships. And how do we make sense of the difficulties that we go through in life, whether they're professional, personal, emotional. And so Gifted was really born from that idea of transforming our relationships to our identity, to our difficulties, to our challenges. And so that's deeply, deeply connected to my own personal story and the stories of the people that I am lucky to coach today.
Yes, that's really beautiful. And
Thank you.
what makes it different from other approaches of learning leadership that you had in the past? What would you say?
What I've seen very often is that we tend to tell people, and I'm thinking also of leaders in organizations, that they have to put aside some of the parts that they are, some of their identities, to become, that great leader, that great manager, that great person that is approved of by all, and that matches 100% expectations. And I think what we succeed to do differently with Gifted is that we help people, individuals, and also leaders to be their full selves and to still make it work as a leader, as a manager, because we integrate their personal identity with their professional identities, their ambitions. And so what makes Gifted different is also the six pillar models that we have. One of the pillar is identity. One of the pillar is energy and what's happening in the body. So we also use somatic experiences, body work, posture, confidence in one's own intuition, and all these elements that are very often associated with personal life and not necessarily professional life. I think we are really envisioning a world where leadership can become more authentic and more integrated with who the person is beyond what they just do.
Yes, wonderful. And I love to follow up on that one because
Yes.
you've walked a very interesting career path from IE Business School to the UN and Gifted. All these experiences are weren't just shiny titles. They must have shaped how you think about leadership. So how did that journey influence your vision of leadership today?
I've been lucky enough to benefit from these environments and especially from the sense of excellence, i.e., Business School and also the United Nations, that they gave me that. They gave me the grit and also the love for excellence and for always going beyond. They also continued to nurture my sense of multiculturalism, diversity, and inclusion. And I would say what they really brought to me was the understanding of systems, but also where sometimes systems can, again, have their own limitations. They also helped me to come up with solutions in terms of how to help leaders incorporate their own personal styles into their leadership styles, and how to understand diversity and inclusion, how to continue to work with languages, how to be immersed in other people's stories, and how to work very deeply connected to your vision.
Mm.
I'm very thankful also for the support system that I've built from these different environments. So they definitely are connected to the DNA of Gifted in terms of diversity and inclusion, the search for excellence, the quality, and also, of course, the connections.
Yeah. So while
Yeah.
doing all of this, I understand that you're also experiencing and also navigating your own health journey. How did that combination, like professional and professional highs and personal challenges, teach you about your identity and resilience?
For me, it came very late in my life, I must admit. It came very recently, that kind of integration between personal identity and professional one, and that's why it influences my work so deeply today. I think what I've learned from my own personal challenges and also health-wise is the true definition of resilience. It's not something that you do, it's just some things that you become. When you really take the time to dig deep into what are your values, but also what are your emotions and what are the different aspects of one's identity. I was very much focused for many years on giving a lot of space to my professional identity and maybe too little to my personal one. And so it really taught me to learn to give more space to my personal one, to my health, and to learn to work with all those elements together. That's also the core message, I think, of the book, Shard Wounds to Warrior. And of all the work that I do with my clients today, we really look to give the clients the space to incorporate all the parts of who they are. And that's what the illness and also my professional journey taught me.
Yeah. So I think let's talk more about the transformation that you had. I imagine that came in 2024, which I
Right.
know is a big year for you. You often describe it as transformative, almost like a turning point. And the word you use a lot around that time is alignment. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, why was 2024 a defining year for you and for Gifted?
Indeed, I think 2024 was the word of alignment for me, and I would say also finding myself, reconnecting all those different parts of my identity as I was mentioning earlier. 2024 was the hardest part, was the hardest year for me of my life, because that's the year that I was really confronted to the illness and also the sense of solitude, of being disconnected from others, experimenting truly what it means to feel powerless in the face of challenge or hardship, and feeling that my identity was actually misaligned, that I was no longer connecting exclusively to who I was professionally, but I had to somehow also learn who I was as a person and acknowledge that the illness was present as well and that I needed to accept it instead of fight against it. So I think 2024 was really the year where I stopped wearing a mask regarding the illness, my illness, and I transformed maybe the emotions that I had inside into the gifted model, which is now 6 pillars that are really tied to my identity and the identity of the people I work with, tied to resilience and to self-leadership. And 2024 was the year where I really understood that I cannot be aligned if I only know the positive parts of myself, but also I have to learn to embrace the parts that were sometimes hidden or that I didn't like so much or that were darker somehow. So that is why it was a transformative year, both for me and also for the essence of Gifted.
Yeah. So when you talk about alignment, what does that really mean to you?
It's very simple. To me, alignment means when what you do and what you think and
Mm,
who you are deeply the same. Like one
yeah.
connects with the other, that connects with the other. So
Mm,
everything flows, and then it gives you a different type of energy, in your leadership, in your body, in your essence, in your relationships. That's what
yeah.
alignment means. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that really stands out in your story is that you don't just live resilience, you also help others fight it too. You show people that adversity doesn't have to hold them back. It can all actually unlock the strength. So from your own perspective, how do you guide adults to turn adversity into strength?
So we were talking about language earlier in this conversation,
Yeah.
and I think one very important thing is to change the language around what people go through. We often see life as, like black and white or black or white, and often we're afraid or we interpret very negatively the negative events and the hardships and the setbacks that we go through. And so changing the language is the first thing that we do and that I do when I guide people to take ownership of their challenges And so that's why also, the book is named Wounds to Warrior, right? Because there is
Yeah.
this notion of, um, yeah, I think you are a warrior when you go through these things, and just acknowledging that gives you that extra strength and the pride of your own story. So that's the first step. And then there is also the gifted model that I was mentioning earlier, right? So energy, identity, traumas, desire to be one's own self, facing the look and the gaze of others, trusting your own intuition, all these elements are the concrete steps of the models that I use to guide other people. And alignment, resilience, confidence are the three key words I would say of gifted that we give and that we provide to clients to really help them to transform their wounds into something to be proud of, really. Yeah,
Yeah, I love it. I love that you decided to tell your story in a completely different way through a
correct.
novel. Yes, I love that.
Correct.
Yes, because
Thank you.
fiction sometimes tells the truth more powerfully than facts, right?
Correct.
Yes. Spoiler alert here. I don't want our readers, like our listeners can doesn't want to touch their hands in the book. But if a reader finishes the book and walks away with one thing at a high level, what do you hope that is?
Well, thank you for asking this question because it's really inspiring.
Yeah.
I would hope that the message that they can get is embrace all the parts of yourselves and also the parts that you didn't like so far, because they really make you who you are, and they are the basis and the foundation of what you will be to others, what you will be to yourself, and the type of leader that you will become if you're a leader in an organization. And if I may also share, in the book there is a quote that I used that comes from a Korean
Mm-hmm.
series.
Yeah.
And I think it really embodies the essence of what I tried to convey in the book. And it goes like this. So there's a bit of a spoiler alert for those who will watch the series Alchemy of Souls, but for those who saw it goes like this. To the light that saved the world, I shall return your shadow. For the light that embraces shadow may never be lost in darkness. And so that's really about learning to embrace the light in yourself, but also the shadows, so that you may never be lost in darkness, right? So that you may find your own strength, who you really are, and just go ahead and shine with that. So that's really the message that I hope readers can get from the book.
Yeah, that's really inspirational and very reflective as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. When you take a step back and look at your journey so far, there are so many milestones, but I'm curious which ones you feel most meaningful to you personally.
Um, I think I have to mention the United Nations because that's really deeply connected to, I think, who I am as a person, to my values. So I think that starting my career in the United Nations as young as 25 years old is such a big milestone that I'm really proud of. And the people that I could meet also along my path, even at IE Business School. I think my biggest milestone, if I have to be honest, is also my most difficult one, and that was that year, 2024, having to really confront sickle cell disease in the most difficult time of my life, because that made me stronger and because that made me more aligned, because it completely redefined the way now I work with gifted and with my clients. And some of the stories and testimonials that I've received from my clients, right? Hearing them talk
Mm,
about how now they learn to embody and love their version of their past, their version of their present, and the version of their future, learning them say how now they are able to show the love for themselves through the way that they dress, or the fact that they're now able to find peaceful sleep instead of having all those nightmares about their story. So I think these are the things that I'm really most proud of.
yeah.
And of
So,
course, my
yeah,
family, right? Because I told
yeah.
you initially that it all started in my childhood and the way I was raised. So of course, I'm grateful for my family and what they brought to me.
Yes. So is there a tangible achievements that make you particularly proudest and bring you closer to your vision every day?
Mm, yeah, I think I would say, in these words, I would say having survived 2024 and having
Yeah.
completely rebuilt from
Mm,
2024.
yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, your story just feels like a mirror for leaders who are searching for something deeper than just a status or a recognition. What
Thank you.
advice would you give to leaders who are trying to reconnect with their own identity?
I think I would give them a tool that really helped me, and that really helps my client, and that tool is silence and space. Because very often I find when we're trying to reconnect with our identities,
Mm,
we're just submerged by what I call the voices of others, right? Others' expectations and society's messages, and you're just so looking for recognition and to fit in that you can often lose your voice. It's still here, but you just don't listen to it, and so it kind of fades. So I would say silence your thoughts, take space, take some time off, and just try to really learn to listen to your values and what your inner voice is telling you. It sounds maybe very metaphorical, but that's a concrete tool that I would recommend. Just silence and space can transform the way that you listen to your own self.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So when you think about the future, like in the next 10 or even 20 years, what kind of legacy do you want to leave through your work and through your story?
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. I would say I would be very happy if we learned to redefine leadership and identity, and we learned that identity is the basis of all that we do, and that we don't have to go through the world disconnected, that there is space for us being who we are and integrating what we do with who we are. I would also like people to recognize that there is a gift truly in the hardships that they're going through, and that these are not just bad things that happen and that we have to survive, but these are truly what make us who we are and what make us unique. And so learning to embrace those wounds and turn them into positive stories. I think that would be the greatest legacy to leave.
Mm, yes,
Yeah.
wonderful. And looking ahead, are there any exciting initiatives or projects that you have in mind that you'd like to share with our listeners here?
Thank you. Yes, I would love to explore building even further the gifted
Mm,
model in 6 pillars,
yeah.
probably making it a well-documented methodology. Why not in a book that would allow me to do that, and also continue to develop coaching not only with personal clients but also with organizations, which is what I've been doing this past few months.
Mm,
So, just growing the relationships with organizations, helping leaders to really understand that personal and professional lives can be integrated and give amazing results. And lastly, launching an online platform so that clients can have an ongoing support, even from session to session. These would be the upcoming goals, I would say.
yes, that's very exciting. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Gifted is transforming this work and the impact that we can bring
Thank
through
you.
this project. Before we end the session, I'd love our readers to and our listeners here to take away something useful. As always, I love to also ask, the guest here with awards or like takeaways that they would love to share with our listeners here. Can be one or three words that you'd like our readers to take away the most after this podcast.
Sure. I would say reframe your difficulties and your hardships because they can make you powerful, and trust your story what you've been through, because that is the foundation for your impact.
Yes, wonderful.
Mm.
Salimatou, I really enjoyed this conversation. What I'm taking away is how you turned both your challenges and your gifts into something that inspires and empowers others. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. If our listeners here would like to connect with you, what are the best way for them?
They can connect with me directly on my website, which is
Yeah.
gifted-experiences.com, and they can also connect with me on LinkedIn, on my personal LinkedIn.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
To everyone listening today, may Salitou's journey remind us that resilience isn't just surviving the hard moments, it's also about finding alignment with who you are and leading from that place of truth. Salimatou, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for taking time to sharing your story with us today.
Thank you very much, Tam. Thank you. It was a pleasure for me too.
Yes, wonderful. Great, thank you.